Coming from the NFL confirmed in a memo to teams yesterday, the league year will start at 4 o'clock Eastern time Wednesday as scheduled. The NFL said the Players Association would not provide consent to move the league year. That's according to Shefty, who will join us in our next hour. So with all of that, the NFL is expected to push ahead with their offseason schedule. Today, as we've been telling you, was a huge day. 11:59 a.m. this morning is the deadline for teams to apply the franchise or transitional tag on players. 1 minute after that, the negotiating window for free agency begins. Some people call it legal tampering. Teams won't be able to sign those free agents officially, however, until Wednesday at 4 in the afternoon Eastern time, when the new league year is expected to begin. And according to Shefty, not everyone is happy with this. You see his tweet here. He tweets, "A glimpse of our world. With free agency on track for this week, some teams are planning to use private planes to fly in premier free agents. Still, those flights require pilots to leave home and work, and teams are not pleased about this. Teams not happy that free agency is this week." It does appear we're headed here, however, and let's bring Dan Graziano, our NFL insider extraordinaire, on with us here. And his coverage of this has been exceptional. And before we get to Tom Brady and everything else, let's talk about how we decided for the NFL to leave the calendar as is.
Well, there were discussions, Greeny, yesterday after the results of the CBA voting were announced between league officials and officials from the NFLPA. The league would need the NFLPA's agreement if it wanted to push back the start of the league year in free agency. And what came out of those conversations was a decision that, hey, free agency is not an event that requires a lot of people to be together in one place, as NBA games and Major League Baseball games do. It can be done remotely. Teams sign contracts with players all the time without bringing them into the facility, so they decided to move ahead with it as scheduled. It's definitely a decision that has not gone over wonderfully in every corner of the NFL world. Just texting with agents and team executives last night, I was reading words on my phone like disgusted, shocked, appalled, those kinds of things. So there are plenty of people out there who aren't thrilled about this decision, but in the end, and barring some change in the next 4 hours, they have decided to go ahead and start things on schedule.
And so let's make sure, because the question I'm sure a lot of people will be asking is, how about physicals? Most of this, to the point you're making, can be done remotely. But players, all player contracts in the National Football League and generally in all sports are subject to a physical. How will that work in this? Could we be living in a world where 2 months from now, some of the deals that we see getting made now wind up being voided?
We absolutely could, and in terms of the physicals, that procedure has not been worked out yet. I'm not sure there's going to be a universal one applied. There's been some talk about using private planes to fly players in, the owners that have access to private planes. There's been some talk about doing the physicals, in the player's home location, finding a physician that can do it, and then transmit the results to the teams electronically. There are a lot of different options being discussed. I don't believe the league is going to impose some uniform rule for it. It's possible. You saw them last week impose a rule about not being able to see draft prospects in person, so it's possible. But as of now, they're still working through all that team by team.
Okay, so Dan Graziano, you'll be with us all morning long. Stay right there. Laura, the first quarterback domino fell over the weekend.
Greeny, a source telling our Jeff Darlington that the Titans have agreed on a new 4-year deal with Ryan Tannehill that will pay the quarterback up to $118 million, including an average annual value of $29.5 million and $62 million fully guaranteed. Now, with Tannehill going back to Tennessee, that means one less potential suitor for Tom Brady. So we now welcome in our Patriots reporter, Mike Reiss. And let's start with this, Mike. What sense do you get of the Patriots' level of confidence in re-signing Tom Brady now that we know there is one less suitor for Brady out there?
Well, Laura, a potential franchise-altering day here with the Patriots, a potential franchise-altering day, repeating that for effect. To think that at noontime, Tom Brady's agents can now speak with other teams to see what type of market is out there for him elevates the possibility that he could be playing elsewhere in 2020. Now, from a Patriots perspective, with Bill Belichick leading this negotiation, this is actually information that he would like to know. He wants to know, who is he competing against and at what level? We know Tennessee is out. We expect Tampa Bay to be in based on what Bruce Arians has said in the past. They want to see what's behind door number 2 in Tampa. And he said if Tom Brady is calling, that's the type of quarterback you would pick up the phone for. But who else? And for the Patriots, you look at it, when you're a free agent, You want to get the best deal from Bill Belichick in the history of his time here as coach. You go out to market, you see what's out there, and you bring it back to him. What we don't know, Laura, is that the case here with Tom Brady, or is both sides thinking maybe a fresh start would be best?
All right, Mike Reiss with the latest there. Of course, you'll be keeping everybody updated all day long as this continues to develop and all week long, and you'll be on ESPN for that. Thanks for joining us. We also have Dan Orlovsky here with us and Dan Graziano, but let's bring in Orlovsky now with Graziano. Dan Orlovsky, we'll start with you first. You heard what Mike Reiss just said there with Tannehill being now signed. Do you think that we're in a world where Brady is more likely to go back to the Patriots? What are your thoughts?
No, I don't see Tannehill staying with the Titans having any impact on Tom Brady leaving New England, because it was always about New England. I'll take everyone back to in January when I said, what are the Patriots going to do by the middle of March to prove to Tom Brady that they weren't going to put him in the same position that they did in 2019? And they haven't done anything specifically on their offense to prove that to Tom Brady. The same people that were there, the same struggles that he experienced with those players last year, they're still going to be there. And so this doesn't have any bearing on the Patriots looking more enticing to Tom Brady. There's still going to be at least 4 or 5 teams out there that if you're as a quarterback looking at them going, there's a lot more for me to work with and succeed with on those teams than New England. If you look at the chart and the Bucks, both those teams are much more appealing to Tom Brady. The Chargers have young stars on their offense. The addition of Trey Turner is a big deal. They traded for Trey Turner from Carolina as a lineman. That's a big deal to secure their offensive front, and everybody knows the talent that Tampa Bay has on their offense.
All right, Dan Graziano, let's go back to you, because it was really Diana Rossini when she was in our studio one day last week that started giving us the impression that maybe the market out there for Brady isn't quite as robust as we had expected it to be. So what sense do we have as of this moment of the sheer number of teams that you think Tom Brady will be able to choose between?
Well, I believe there are other teams in the mix. Greeny, I think, what Dan is saying about the Chargers, I don't think can be ruled out. We know the Buccaneers are going to take a big swing here and try and convince him. And, yesterday we're hearing that maybe there might be some other teams in the mix in addition to those two, plus the Patriots, obviously still a possibility. So I think we'll get some clarity on the Brady situation here. If not this afternoon, then shortly thereafter. But as of now, look, the number of teams that he could go to has been reduced. Tennessee was one of them and no longer is. San Francisco, it sounds like, probably isn't going to go that direction. So there are a couple of teams that we thought might be in it that aren't, so that does reduce the number of possible destinations. But I still don't think it's just down to 1 or 2.
You did make me think of something that I'm sure a lot of fans are wondering, and that is, as of noon today, what exactly can happen? We know Brady himself remains under contract to the Patriots until 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. So he, in theory, cannot be talking to anyone, but his agents can. Could we hear tell of some sort of a deal as quickly as this afternoon?
We have in the past few years, since they started this quote-unquote legal tampering window 2 days ahead of the league year, we have seen details of deals being agreed to trickle out. They're not supposed to happen, but they definitely do. And we will at some point today be hearing about agreements between teams and players. Will Tom Brady be one of them? Entirely possible, but we can't say for sure. But yeah, definitely there's a chance. You will definitely be hearing about contracts being agreed to between teams and players at some point this afternoon and this evening.
Dan Orlovsky, I want to get your take on this. As we hear that maybe the market isn't as robust for Brady as we had initially thought, is some of this in your mind from the teams that might be interested in him, just looking at the fact that maybe they only have him for a couple of years, even though he is the GOAT, but you only have him for a couple of years?
Everyone's situation is different. I think most general managers in the NFL understand the challenge that they have to have a long-term vision for their organization, but their number one job is to try to win now. We know that the NFL is a very right-now business, and general managers have to find a way for them to put the best football team out there this year and think about next year at the same time. And so I'm not in the camp that thinks that Tom Brady's not going to have a decent amount of teams after him. I totally believe that there are are going to be at least a handful of teams that sit there and go, we're a quarterback away, good quarterback play away from winning a lot of football games and giving ourselves a chance to make a Super Bowl run. And Tom Brady is a difference maker for our team, and we need to commit to making our run to go get Tom Brady. I don't think this is a 1 or 2 team race. I think there's going to be multiple teams interested in Tom Brady. There's multiple good, smart general managers and coaches that can watch the tape and go, this guy is a big-time upgrade to what we have at the position now. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting. We got to remember, Tom Brady wanted this situation. He made sure his contract let this situation happen. I think we're going to have a fun 48 to 72 hours with this.
All right, stay with us, because coming up in just a few minutes, Dan Orlovsky, I will ask you to name the one place Brady